Businessman caught Black Nanny helping his autistic son and felt something he never imagined. Michael Thompson came home early that day, and what he saw through the slightly open bedroom door would change his life forever. The nanny was sitting on the floor with his 6-year-old autistic son, who hadn't spoken in 3 years, and the boy was singing. A soft, clear melody flowed from Ethan's lips as Sarah, the woman who had been caring for him for just 2 weeks, guided him with rhythmic hand movements. Small colored blocks were scattered across the floor, arranged in patterns that seemed to hold special meaning for the child. Michael felt his chest tighten and tears well up uncontrollably. His ex-wife Jennifer had left precisely because she couldn't bear Ethan's silence, claiming she could no longer live in a house where the only words were her own, echoing off the empty walls. And now there was this simple woman, in her beige sweater and faded jeans, achieving what 3 years of expensive therapies had failed to do. Ethan wasn't just singing, he was looking directly into Sarah's eyes, something he rarely did with anyone. "Good job, Ethan. Now let's build the blue tower just like we sang in the song," Sarah said in a gentle voice, picking up blue blocks and stacking them while continuing the melody. The boy mimicked her movements precisely, his tiny voice joining hers in an unlikely duet that made Michael grip the wall to steady himself. How was it possible that a stranger could connect with his son in a way he himself never had? He decided not to interrupt and quietly retreated to the hallway. His mind raced with questions he couldn't answer. Who was Sarah Jenkins really? How had she learned this? And why on earth hadn't she mentioned anything about special methods when he hired her? The next day, Michael made up an excuse to come home early again. This time he hid in the adjoining room and watched through a crack in the door. Sarah had brought a small keyboard and was teaching Ethan to associate colors with different sounds. "Red is deep like this, see?" She played a low note. "And yellow is high, very thin." Ethan clapped his hands and repeated the sounds, something Michael had never seen his son do before. The child seemed like a completely different version of himself in this woman's presence. Over the following days, Michael secretly observed them every day. He discovered that Sarah used a technique blending music, colors, and movement, something she seemed to have developed on her own. There were no books or manuals nearby, just her intuition guiding each activity. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. One afternoon, while spying on another session, Michael saw something that puzzled him even more. Sarah was silently crying as she hugged Ethan, murmuring words he couldn't quite make out. He caught only fragments. "Can't fail again. You're too special. Mommy's here to take care of you." Mommy? Why had she referred to herself that way? Michael felt a strange mix of jealousy and gratitude. Jealousy because Ethan had never shown such attachment to him, and gratitude because someone had finally reached his son. That night, after Sarah left, Michael tried to play with Ethan the same way he'd seen her do. He sat on the floor, picked up the colored blocks, and attempted to sing the melody she used. "Hey, buddy, Daddy wants to play with you too." Ethan glanced at him for a second, but quickly looked away and retreated to the corner of the room, where he always went when he wanted to be alone. Michael felt a sharp pang in his chest. Why did it work with her and not with him? The next morning, when Sarah arrived for work, Michael decided to ask a few seemingly casual questions. "Sarah, I've noticed Ethan has been responding well to your activities. Did you study education?" She tensed up immediately, her hands trembling slightly as she hung her bag on the hook. "No, Mr. Thompson, I only finished high school, but I've always loved children." "And those techniques you use with him, where did you learn them?" "Techniques?" She pretended not to understand, but Michael noticed the nervousness in her voice. "Oh, it's just playtime, really. Kids love music, right?" There was something she wasn't telling him, Michael was sure. But he decided not to push for now. After all, regardless of the methods, Ethan was making impressive progress. Still, his curiosity only grew. He began paying attention to small details, the notebook Sarah sometimes carried in her bag, the notes she took about Ethan's reactions, the way she seemed to know exactly when the boy was about to have a meltdown and could prevent it. A week later, something unexpected happened. Michael came home and found Sarah unconscious on the living room floor, with Ethan sitting beside her, crying desperately. "Daddy, Mommy Sarah fell asleep and won't wake up," were the first complete words Ethan had ever spoken in his father's presence. Michael was shocked for two reasons. Ethan had spoken a full sentence, and he had called Sarah Mommy Sarah. But this wasn't the time to process those emotions. He carried Sarah to the car and rushed to the nearest hospital, with Ethan in the back seat, refusing to let go of the nanny's hand. At the hospital, the doctors discovered Sarah had a serious heart condition. The cardiologist explained it was congenital and had worsened over time. "She needs urgent surgery," the doctor said, "but it's an expensive and complex procedure. I insist on covering all the costs," Michael offered immediately. When Sarah woke up and heard the proposal, her reaction was completely unexpected. She began crying desperately, vehemently refusing the help. "I can't, Mr. Thompson. I can't leave Ethan now. He's making so much progress. Sarah, you could lose your life if you don't have the surgery. And he could lose everything he's achieved if I'm not here. You don't understand." She stopped speaking, as if she had revealed more than she intended. "What don't I understand?" "Sarah, I need you to be honest with me. Is there something about you I should know?" She looked away, clearly wrestling with some inner conflict. Before she could answer, a nurse came in, saying Ethan was desperate in the waiting room, refusing to eat or calm down. Michael went to the boy and tried to comfort him, but Ethan just kept repeating, "I want Mommy Sarah, I want Mommy Sarah." The situation grew even more complicated when, 2 days later, an elderly woman showed up at the hospital looking for Sarah. It was Mrs. Margaret, 68 years old, who introduced herself as the nanny's mother. "Is my daughter okay?" "I got a call saying she had fainted." Michael seized the opportunity to learn more about who Sarah really was. "Mrs. Margaret, I need to ask you something. Does your daughter have any special training for working with autistic children? She's achieved results with my son that no professional ever could." Mrs. Margaret's face closed off immediately, and she glanced around as if making sure no one else was listening. "Sir, what was your name again?" "Michael Thompson." "Mr. Thompson, my daughter is a very special person. She has a gift with special children. But she also carries a great pain in her heart." "What kind of pain, Mrs.?" Margaret hesitated, clearly torn between loyalty to her daughter and the desire to help Ethan. "She lost a son 5 years ago, an autistic boy just like yours. His name was Noah." Michael felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. Everything was starting to make sense. Sarah's excessive dedication, the way she spoke to Ethan, the tears he'd witnessed. How did she lose her son? Noah was 7 when it happened. He was at a special school that promised the world but didn't properly care for the children. One day there was an accident. Mrs. Margaret couldn't continue, her tears cutting off her words. An accident. Noah left the school without anyone noticing. By the time they found him, it was too late. He had drowned in the park lake near the school. Michael's legs weakened. The pain Sarah carried was far greater than he'd imagined. "After that, my daughter was consumed by guilt," Mrs. Margaret continued. "She kept saying if she had developed a better method to teach Noah to communicate, he could have asked for help, could have called her name when he was in danger. Is that why she created these techniques? She studied day and night for years, read everything she could find about autism, music, psychology. She tested everything in the air, imagining she was teaching Noah. It became her obsession. The puzzle pieces were falling into place. Sarah saw in Ethan a second chance to save the child she had lost. That's why she was so devoted, why she cried while holding him, why she refused to accept any extra payment or recognition for her work. "Mr. Thompson," Mrs. Margaret placed a hand on his arm, "my daughter has never told this to any employer. If she finds out I spoke, she'll be furious with me. But you need to understand, she's not just caring for your son, she's trying to save hers too." At that moment, Sarah appeared in the hallway, walking slowly while leaning against the wall. When she saw her mother talking to Michael, her face paled even further. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I came to see how you were, dear." "And what were you talking about?" The awkward silence that followed was broken by Ethan's screams echoing through the hospital corridors. Michael ran toward the sound and found the boy having a meltdown in the waiting room, being restrained by two nurses. "Ethan!" Sarah forgot her own weakness and rushed to him. "Mommy, Sarah!" Ethan threw himself into her arms, calming instantly. It was then that Michael understood the depth of their connection. This wasn't just a nanny caring for a child. This was a wounded mother trying to heal herself by healing another son. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the following days, as Sarah recovered in the hospital, Ethan regressed completely. He stopped speaking, refused to eat, and spent hours staring out the window as if waiting for her to appear. Michael desperately tried applying the techniques he'd seen Sarah use, but nothing worked. Ethan merely tolerated him, showing no real interest in any activities. Then Michael made a decision that would change everything. He sat by Sarah's hospital bed and spoke with all the honesty he could muster. "Sarah, I know about Noah." She closed her eyes as if struck. "My mother told you. She was worried. And so am I. Not just about Ethan, but about you." "You don't understand," Sarah began to cry. "I failed my son. I couldn't teach him to ask for help when he needed it. If I had been better, more dedicated..." "Sarah, you were just a mother doing your best. What happened to Noah wasn't your fault." "Yes, it was," she burst out. "I was all he had. His father ran away when he found out Noah was special. It was just me and him against the world. And I failed." Michael Thompson realized Sarah's pain ran much deeper than he'd imagined. She wasn't just grieving. She was convinced she was responsible for her son's tragic situation. "And now Ethan is regressing because I'm not there," she continued. "I'm failing again." "No, Sarah, you saved my son. In 2 weeks you achieved what 3 years of treatment couldn't. You have a gift." "It's not a gift," she murmured. "It's desperation. Every milestone Ethan reaches is another chance to prove I could have saved Noah." The brutal honesty of her confession left Michael speechless. He knew anything he said would sound hollow in the face of such profound grief. "I need to go home." Sarah tried to stand. "Ethan needs me." "You need the surgery first." "I can't afford the surgery, and even if you want to help, I can't accept. I already owe the world too much." Michael knew he had to take drastic action. The next day he showed up at the hospital with Ethan, who had spent the entire night crying and asking for Mommy Sarah. "Look who came to see you," Michael said, carrying the boy in his arms. Ethan threw himself into Sarah's embrace, and she burst into tears seeing the state he was in. "He hasn't been eating well," Michael explained. "He doesn't want to play, doesn't want to do anything. He just calls for you." "Ethan, look at Mommy." Sarah cupped the boy's face in her hands. "You need to eat to stay strong, just like I need medicine to get better. Are you going to leave like my mom did?" Ethan's innocent question struck Michael like an arrow. The boy was associating Sarah's absence with his biological mother's abandonment. "Never, sweetheart. Mommy Sarah will always take care of you, but to do that, I need to get better first." Sarah looked at Michael over Ethan's head, and he understood the message. She would have the surgery, but only if she had guarantees she could keep caring for the boy. "Sarah, I want to make you an offer," Michael said. "Accept the surgery, and once you recover, I want you to come live in my house. Ethan needs you close." "Live in your house, Mr. Thompson. I'm just the nanny." "You're so much more than that. You're the person who brought my son back to me, and it's clear he sees you as his mother." The surgery was scheduled for the following week. While they waited, Michael converted one of his guest rooms into a small apartment for Sarah. He added a kitchenette, a private bathroom, and decorated it in colors he knew she liked. On the day of the surgery, Ethan was inconsolable. Michael had to carry him through the hospital halls, trying to explain that Mommy Sarah would be back soon. The operation lasted 6 hours. The entire time, Ethan remained completely silent, refusing to speak or eat. Michael felt like he was reliving the worst moments of his son's early years after the diagnosis. When the doctor finally came out with the news that everything had gone well, Ethan spoke for the first time in hours. "Mommy Sarah's alive." "She's alive and well, son, but she'll need lots of rest." During Sarah's recovery, something unexpected began to happen. Michael started sharing Ethan's care with her, creating a routine that felt more and more like a traditional family. He'd come home from work and find them doing activities in Sarah's makeshift room. Gradually, he was included in their playtime, and he noticed Ethan was accepting his presence more naturally. "Can Daddy play too?" Ethan asked one afternoon, handing his father some colored blocks. It was the first time the boy had spontaneously included him in an activity. Michael felt his eyes well up, but managed to control himself so as not to scare Ethan. "Of course, son. What are we going to build? Are we?" "A house for Mommy Sarah to live in forever." Sarah, who was sitting on the bed watching the scene, smiled sadly. Michael noticed she still carried guilt for accepting a life she felt she didn't deserve. 3 weeks after the surgery, when Sarah had mostly recovered, Michael received an unexpected visit. His ex-mother-in-law, Barbara, showed up unannounced at the door with a stern expression. "Michael, we need to talk." "Mrs. Barbara, what a surprise. Please, come in." "I heard you hired a person to live in your house and take care of Ethan." The way she said person made it clear this wasn't just a professional matter. "Sarah is Ethan's nanny, and she's done an exceptional job." "A nanny who lives in the house? Michael, have you lost your mind? A woman like that shouldn't be raising my grandson." "A woman like what?" "You know exactly what I mean. And on top of that, this whole charade of pretending to be the child's mother. Jennifer told me the boy calls this woman Mom." Michael felt anger rising in his throat. He knew exactly what Barbara was implying, and he wouldn't tolerate it. "Mrs. Barbara, with all due respect, but who lives in this house and cares for Ethan is my decision. It's your decision until my daughter decides to ask for custody back. Jennifer doesn't want custody of Ethan. She made that very clear when she left." People change their minds, Michael, especially when they find out their son is being raised by a stranger. Barbara left after dropping that veiled threat in the air. That night, Michael talked to Sarah about the visit. "She's right about one thing," Sarah said, clearly upset. "I shouldn't be here pretending to be Ethan's mother. This could cause problems for you." "Sarah, you're not pretending to be anything. Ethan chose to call you Mom because that's how he sees you, and I won't let anyone take that happiness away from him." "But what if his ex-wife really tries to get custody? Jennifer abandoned Ethan when he needed her most. No judge would grant her custody." However, Sarah's fears proved justified. 2 weeks later, Michael received a court summons. Jennifer was indeed petitioning for custody of Ethan, claiming the father was providing an unsuitable environment for the child. Michael's lawyer explained it would be an uphill battle. "The legal system still tends to favor mothers, even when they've abandoned the child," said Dr. Harrison, "and the fact that you have a live-in employee could be used against you." "Sarah isn't just an employee. She's the person who brought Ethan back to life." "I understand, Michael, but legally she's your employee, and that could be interpreted as you being unable to care for your son alone." Jennifer's strategy became clear when she showed up at the house a few days later, accompanied by a social worker. "I've come to get my son," she announced, striking a pose that tried to appear maternal but came off as forced. Ethan, who was playing with Sarah in the living room, hid behind his nanny when he saw his birth mother. "Ethan, come give Mommy a hug." Jennifer held out her arms. "No," the boy replied simply. "My mum is Sarah." The social worker jotted everything down in a notebook, giving no indication of whether this was good or bad for the case. "Mr. Thompson," the social worker addressed him, "I need to ask you a few questions about the child's routine and the woman who works here. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The interview lasted 2 hours. Sarah answered all the questions honestly, explaining her techniques and Ethan's progress. However, when asked about her qualifications, she had to admit she had no college degree or formal training in pedagogy. "I understand," the social worker noted. "And how did you develop these methods?" Sarah hesitated, glancing at Michael for guidance. He nodded, encouraging her to tell the truth. "I had an autistic son. His name was Noah. After I lost him, I dedicated my life to studying ways to help special needs children. Did you lose custody of your son? No, Sarah swallowed hard. He passed away 5 years ago. The silence that followed was heavy. The social worker made a few more notes before continuing. And you, Mr. Thompson, how do you assess Mrs. Jenkins' work? Sarah saved my son, Michael answered without hesitation. When she arrived here, Ethan hadn't spoken in 3 years. Now he talks, plays, smiles. She achieved what years of therapy couldn't. After the visit, Sarah was visibly shaken. They're going to give Ethan to his ex-wife, she said tearfully. And it'll be my fault. If I hadn't gotten so involved, if I'd kept my distance. Sarah, stop this. Ethan needs you. I need you. You need me? The question caught Michael off guard. Until that moment, he had focused solely on Ethan's needs, never stopping to examine his own feelings. Yes, he admitted. Not just to care for Ethan. I need you here, as part of our lives. The hearing was scheduled for a month later. During that time, Michael hired the best family lawyer he could find and began documenting all of Ethan's progress under Sarah's care. He filmed their play sessions, recorded the boy singing, and captured their conversations. He compiled a complete dossier proving Ethan was at his best since the diagnosis. However, Jennifer wasn't empty-handed. She hired a psychologist who claimed Ethan's bond with Sarah was inappropriate and that the child was confusing family roles. The boy has clearly transferred maternal attachment to the domestic caregiver, the psychologist stated in his evaluation. This could lead to identity confusion and emotional development issues in the future. The report was a devastating blow to Michael. How could he counter an argument that seemed scientifically grounded? The answer came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Margaret, Sarah's mother, approached Michael 2 days before the hearing. Mr. Thompson, my daughter doesn't know I'm here, but I need to tell you something. Go ahead, Mrs. Margaret. My daughter never mentioned it, but she has a folder full of studies she's done on autism, notes, research, even some articles she wrote but never published. If you can prove she's not just a nanny, but someone who truly understands the subject. Do you have access to these documents? I have copies of everything. Sarah gave them to me when she was in the hospital, afraid something might happen to her and the knowledge would be lost. Michael took the documents and was stunned. Sarah had produced material that appeared academic in quality, with scientific references and detailed case studies. Why did she never show this to anyone? Because she believes she has no right. After losing Noah, she convinced herself her knowledge was worthless. Michael brought the documents to his lawyer, who immediately saw their potential. With this, we can argue that your employee is actually a self-taught specialist. We'll request an independent evaluation of her methods. The day of the hearing arrived filled with tension. The room was packed with family members from both sides, social workers, psychologists, and lawyers. Ethan was present, which made everything even more tense. The child refused to be separated from Sarah, so the judge allowed her to stay by his side throughout the hearing. Jennifer testified first, claiming she had stepped away temporarily due to depression, but was now ready to resume her maternal duties. I learned a lot during that time, she said, forcing tears, and now I know I can give Ethan what he needs. When asked why she had abandoned the child, she blamed Michael for not providing the necessary support. He hired one nanny after another, but was never emotionally present, she claimed. I felt alone and overwhelmed. Michael testified next, explaining his version of events and emphasizing Ethan's progress. Jennifer didn't just abandon me, he said. She abandoned our son when he needed stability the most. Sarah provided that stability. The most tense moment came when it was Sarah's turn to testify. She was visibly nervous, but answered all questions honestly. Jennifer's lawyer tried to discredit her work, repeatedly questioning her lack of formal training. Ms. Sarah, you don't have a degree in psychology, education, or any related field, correct? Correct. Then what makes you think you're qualified to work with an autistic child? That's when Michael's lawyer presented Mrs. Margaret's documents. Your Honor, I'd like to submit as evidence the studies developed by Ms. Sarah over the past 5 years. The judge examined the papers, clearly impressed by the depth of the material. Ms. Sarah, could you explain how you developed these methods? Sarah took a deep breath before answering. Your Honor, I lost my autistic son 5 years ago. Since then, I've dedicated my life to understanding how I could have helped him better. I studied everything I could find, tested techniques, developed new approaches. I don't have a degree, but I have 5 years of intensive study motivated by the greatest pain of my life. The room fell completely silent. Even Jennifer's lawyer seemed moved by the brutal honesty of the answer. And how do you assess the results with Ethan? Ethan is an extraordinary child, Sarah said, looking at the boy sitting quietly beside her. When I started caring for him, he hadn't spoken in 3 years. Now he sings, tells stories, plays, interacts. It wasn't my doing, it was his. He had all of that inside him waiting to come out. The judge then spoke directly to Ethan. Ethan, can you tell me who this woman beside you is? She's my mommy Sarah, Ethan answered without hesitation. And who is that woman over there? The judge pointed to Jennifer. Ethan looked in the direction indicated and answered with the brutal honesty of children. She's the lady who left when I was little. The impact of his words was visible throughout the room. Jennifer began to cry, but her tears seemed more out of frustration than genuine sadness. Ethan, the judge continued, where would you like to live? In my home with Daddy and Mommy Sarah. And if you had to choose just one place to live? With Mommy Sarah, Ethan replied immediately. She'll never leave. The judge called for a recess to deliberate. During the wait, Michael, Sarah, and Ethan sat quietly in the hallway. The boy was tired and eventually fell asleep in Sarah's arms. No matter what happens, Michael whispered, I want you to know you've changed our lives for the better. If they grant her custody, I'll leave New York, Sarah murmured. I couldn't stay in the same city knowing Ethan is suffering. It won't come to that. The judge saw what anyone can see. Ethan is happy with us. When they returned to the courtroom, the judge had reached a decision. After reviewing all testimonies and evidence, this court rules to maintain custody of the child Ethan Thompson with the father, Mr. Michael Thompson. Michael felt an immense relief, but the judge wasn't finished. However, I order that Ms. Jennifer be granted supervised visitation once a week, allowing her to gradually rebuild her relationship with her son. It was a victory, but not a complete one. Jennifer would still have access to Ethan, which worried Michael. After the hearing, as they left the courthouse, Jennifer approached them. Michael, we need to talk. If it's about Ethan, you can speak in front of Sarah. Fine, Jennifer sighed. I know I lost the right to be Ethan's mother when I left, but I want you to know it wasn't easy for me. I imagine it wasn't. You have no idea, she shot back bitterly. You never woke up in the middle of the night wondering if your child was okay because he couldn't tell you. You never spent years listening to nothing but his silence echoing through the house. Sarah, who had stayed quiet until then, finally spoke. I went through that too, and I lost my son. But I never thought of abandoning him. You don't understand, Jennifer snapped. It's different when it's your biological child. The pressure, the guilt. The pressure and guilt are the same for any mother who truly loves, Sarah replied firmly. The difference is, you chose to run from the hardship. I chose to face it. The tension between the two women was palpable, but Ethan broke the mood by tugging at Sarah's sleeve. Mommy Sarah, can I have ice cream today? Of course, sweetheart. You were very brave today. Jennifer watched the interaction with an unreadable expression. After a moment, she turned to Michael. I'm giving up the visits. What do you mean? Ethan doesn't know me anymore. Forcing a relationship he clearly doesn't want would be cruel to him. And to me. Jennifer. Michael, I made a terrible mistake when I left, but I won't make another by forcing something that no longer exists. Ethan has a mother, and it's not me. She faced Sarah. Take good care of him. You've done something I never could. You made him happy. And with that, she walked away, leaving behind a painful chapter in all their lives. In the months that followed, the improvised family settled into a calmer routine. Sarah moved permanently into the room Michael had prepared for her, and Ethan began calling the house our home. Michael realized his feelings for Sarah had grown into something far beyond gratitude. She wasn't just Ethan's savior. She was a strong, intelligent, and caring woman who had brought love and joy to a house once drowning in sorrow. Yet Sarah kept an emotional distance from him, focusing all her attention on Ethan and avoiding moments of intimacy with Michael. One night, after Ethan had fallen asleep, Michael decided to address it. "Sarah, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you plan to stay here forever?" "Why do you ask?" "Because Ethan is very attached to you, and so am I." Sarah was silent for a long moment. "Mr. Thompson, I know my place in this house. I'm the nanny, a very well-treated nanny, but still an employee. Is that how you see yourself?" "It's what I am. To Ethan, you're his mother. To me, you're—" Michael hesitated. "You're the woman who brought our family back to life." "Our family? Ethan and me. We are a family, and you're part of it." Sarah stood up abruptly, clearly uncomfortable with where the conversation was heading. "Mr. Thompson, I think we should go to bed. Tomorrow Ethan has an appointment with the neurologist." She quickly left, leaving Michael alone with his confused thoughts. The relationship between them remained tense for weeks. Michael tried to get closer, but Sarah always found a way to maintain a professional distance. Things changed when Ethan got sick. It was just a common cold, but the boy became very weak and started regressing again, stopping speaking and isolating himself. Sarah panicked. "What if he goes back to how he was before?" she said to Michael, crying. "What if I lose him too?" "Calm down, Sarah. It's just a cold. He'll be fine." "You don't understand," she sobbed. "I can't lose another child. I won't survive it." It was then that Michael realized Sarah wasn't just taking care of Ethan. She was trying to save herself through the boy. "Sarah, Ethan isn't Noah," he said softly. "And you're not the same person who lost your son. You've learned, grown, become someone who can help other children. But what if it's not enough? Then we'll face it together, as a family." The word family seemed to touch something deep in Sarah. She stopped crying and looked straight into Michael's eyes. "Family? You, me, and Ethan. It doesn't matter what the papers say. It doesn't matter if you're officially the nanny or not. We are a family." Ethan recovered from the cold in a few days, speaking and playing normally again. But the conversation had created a new dynamic between Michael and Sarah. She began accepting small gestures of affection from him. A coffee made especially for her, a flower picked from the garden, a sincere compliment about how beautiful she looked. One night as they watched Ethan sleep, Michael finally found the courage to say what he felt. "Sarah, I've fallen in love with you." She didn't answer right away, but she didn't pull away either. "Mr. Thompson." "Michael, just Michael." "Michael," she corrected. "Are you sure you're not confusing gratitude with love?" "I'm sure what I feel for you goes far beyond gratitude. You didn't just save Ethan. You saved me too." "How so?" "I was becoming a bitter man, frustrated with life. I focused only on work because it was easier than dealing with the challenges of raising a special needs child. You taught me that Ethan wasn't a problem to be solved. He was a boy who needed to be loved and understood." Sarah finally looked into his eyes. "What if it doesn't work? What if you get tired of me? Ethan would suffer so much if I had to leave. It won't fail. And even if it did, I'd never let you walk away from Ethan. He needs you. And you? Do you need me?" "I do," Michael answered without hesitation. "I need you to feel whole." They kissed softly, sealing a feeling that had grown gradually over the months. In the days that followed, the house became even more harmonious. Ethan noticed the change in the adults' relationship and seemed to fully approve. "Daddy, are you going to marry Mommy Sarah?" he asked one morning during breakfast. Michael and Sarah exchanged glances, laughing at the child's spontaneity. "Why do you ask, son?" "Because then she'll never leave, and we'll be a real family." "We already are a real family," Sarah said, "with or without marriage." But Ethan's question planted a seed in Michael's mind. He started seriously thinking about marriage, not just for Ethan, but because he genuinely wanted to spend the rest of his life with Sarah. The proposal came naturally a few months later. They were at the park, watching Ethan play on the playground, when Michael turned to Sarah. "Marry me." "What?" "Marry me. Today, tomorrow, whenever you want. But marry me." "Michael, are you sure? I'm 29, you're 35. We can still have other children, build other things." "I want to build everything with you. And if we have more kids, great. If we don't, Ethan is more than enough to make me happy. What if my past gets in the way of our life? If people judge you for being with a nanny, then those people don't deserve to be part of our lives." Sarah looked at Ethan, who was laughing loudly on the slide, radiant with happiness. "He approves," she said, smiling. "And you?" "I accept, but on one condition." "What?" "I want to keep working with special needs children. Now I know that's what I was born to do." "Then let's open a center, a place where other parents can bring their children and find the hope we found." The idea for the center became reality faster than they expected. Michael used his business connections to secure funding, while Sarah developed the methodology and trained a team of professionals. The Ethan Development Center opened 1 year after their wedding. On opening day, dozens of families came seeking help. Ethan, now 7 years old and speaking perfectly, was chosen to cut the ribbon. "This center is for all the special kids like me," he said into the microphone with the seriousness of a child who had matured through hardship. "Here, you'll find people who understand you." The first family they helped was a 5-year-old girl who hadn't spoken since she was 2. After 3 months of treatment with Sarah's methods, she said her first word. The news spread quickly, and the center began receiving families from other states. Sarah became a leading figure in the field, invited to give lectures and seminars. Still, she never forgot her roots. She kept a photo of Noah on her desk and always dedicated the center's successes to the memory of the son she had lost. "Do you think he'd be proud?" she asked Michael one night, looking at the photo. "I'm sure he is," Michael replied. "You turned your pain into healing for other children." 2 years after the center opened, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. The news brought a mix of joy and fear. "What if I don't know how to be a mother to a typical child?" she confessed to Michael. "I only know how to handle special needs kids." "You'll learn. And if this child is special too, they'll have the best mother in the world to care for them." Ethan was thrilled at the news of a baby brother. "I'll teach him everything," he promised. "I'll show him how to talk to Mommy Sarah when she's sad, how to play with colored blocks, how to sing the songs she likes." The pregnancy went smoothly, and Jacob was born perfectly healthy. Ethan became a devoted big brother, always helping Sarah with the baby. "Mum," Ethan said one afternoon, holding Jacob in his arms, "is our family complete now?" Sarah looked around the room, Michael organizing center paperwork, Ethan tenderly caring for his little brother, the photos of Noah on the shelf, and the diplomas she had finally earned. "Yes, my love. Our family is complete." On the center's 5th anniversary, they held a special celebration. Over 100 families attended, many bringing children whose lives had been transformed by Sarah's methods. During the party, a woman approached Sarah with tears in her eyes. "My 8-year-old daughter spoke for the first time yesterday," she said. "She looked at me and said, 'I love you, Mommy.' After 6 years of silence, how can I thank you for this?" "You don't need to thank me," Sarah replied. "Just love your daughter and believe in her. That's all any child needs." That night, after everyone had left, Michael found Sarah on the porch gazing at the stars. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking about Noah," she said softly, "and how life can be so strange. I lost my first son, but it led me to Ethan. Ethan led me to you. You led me to Jacob. And together we've created something that's helping hundreds of other families." "Do you think Noah would approve?" "I'm sure he would. He taught me that a mother's love has no limits. Even after he was gone, that love kept existing and found a way to help other children." "And now?" "Now I know family isn't about blood or paperwork." She smiled, taking Michael's hand. "It's about who chooses to stay, who chooses to love, who chooses to fight together." Ethan appeared on the porch just then, holding Jacob, who had woken up. "Mommy, Jacob is crying. I think he wants you." Sarah took the baby into her arms and rocked him gently, humming the same lullaby she had used with Ethan years ago. Michael wrapped his arm around her, and Ethan snuggled close on the other side. "Look, Jacob," Ethan whispered to his little brother. "This is our family. Daddy works hard to take care of us. Mommy has magic hands that make any sadness go away, and I'm your big brother who will always protect you." Michael looked at the scene and felt his heart overflow with gratitude. He had started as a lonely businessman with a son he couldn't reach. Now he was part of a family bound by true love, not by blood. "You know what?" he said to Sarah. "You didn't just save Ethan, you saved all of us." "No," she corrected, smiling. "We saved each other. That's how family works." And as the stars shone over New York, that unlikely but perfect family remained embraced on the porch, knowing they had found something rare and precious, a love born from pain, grown in hope, and rooted in the joy of being together. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe love can arise from the most unexpected situations? Leave your honest comment, and don't forget to like the video. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories.